So, Humberto, do you like The Sopranos?
It's my favorite show of all time, and I've seen it front to back 5 times. And because you started watching it, I've now started rewatching it, and I'm halfway through the first season.
To be clear, I started rewatching it
and
talking about it, and then now you're starting, or you are?
I'm halfway through the first season.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's get into the psychology of Tony Soprano specifically. Because we could go into the whole show, but I thought we just would sort of target Tony himself.
Let's do it.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I'm a waste management consultant.
So this obviously will spoil the entire 6 seasons, so, duly warned. Let's answer the first question right off the bat. Is Tony Soprano a psychopath?
I don't think so, not from all the discussions we've had about psychopathy. By the way, this is why I do like the layman term sociopath or something along those lines, because he's clearly antisocial. He clearly has low levels of empathy. He's clearly comfortable with violence. But he shows genuine care for some people in his life. He shows some level of ability to organize. He shows some level of like long-term planning and things like this, but with big holes,
Right. So let's go into the different items on the hair psychopathy scale and evaluate whether or not Tony Soprano, the fictional character, has psychopathy. It seems that Melfi, Dr. Melfi, had diagnosed him with psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder, didn't it?
I don't remember.
I think so.
Did she actually say that?
Well, I don't remember, but there was a whole story arc in one of the seasons where when she would consult with other clinicians, and they're like, that psychopaths can't be treated.
Right.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I do remember that, yes. Yeah.
And they manipulate their psychiatrists and all this kind of stuff. So it seemed to me that Dr. Melfi had thought he had psychopathy. And remember that when we talk about these labels, psychopathy as a personality disorder, it is a construct that we create in our field to help us explain people,
right,
and also predict their behavior, and also, make treatment research available to us. If you're just like, if you don't have any labels to anything, then you don't know what you're treating, and you don't know how to evaluate treatment. So you evaluate people. Okay, they fit these criteria seemingly. We did this treatment regimen with them, and it had this outcome.
Yeah. It's not some magical, like, we dub the 100% psychopath.
Right. It's not like, as I always say, diagnosing someone with a broken arm.
Right.
That's a discrete thing that you can see through an x-ray machine. Oh, there's a broken bone.
Yeah.
And it's not a philosophical concept. No. Psychopathy is a philosophical concept.
Yeah.
Okay, but having said that, let's go through the 20 items. Number 1, glib and superficial charm.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
When he wants to be in a new situation or with a stranger or whatever, he can be extremely charming. But it's all definitely bullshit and superficial. So, he's very good at, wooing girls. He's very good at charming some random person that he needs. He can have that voice that's like the nice Tony voice, and...
So you're saying he wasn't sincere?
Yeah, right.
All the time?
No, he's sincere with his friends. To some degree, like oftentimes he is saying one thing, but in his head thinking, I'm probably going to kill him. So he's sincere to some extent, and he certainly has conversations where they seem sincere, like with his son and with his wife. And
so I
wouldn't say 100% glib and superficial, but...
Okay, so let's put a percentage.
Okay.
If we put Ted Bundy at 100...
Yeah, maybe Tony's 60.
Okay, I'd put him at 20 or 10, because... The other people, so I'm going to compare to other people. Ted Bundy is a real person. When you study him and you study his behavior and you hear the stories about him, he's a classic psychopath, in that he was a con artist, committed a lot of crimes, no empathy, all that kind of stuff. He was also a sadistic sexual person in addition to being a psychopath, and a murderer, which is even different still. But Ted Bundy, when he was perceived by people as very rarely being like real with people, but extremely charming and charming all the time. When they think of psychopath, they often think of like a killer. But what I want people to think about when they think of psychopath is a con artist. Someone who is always conning people and doesn't care about conning other people. That's what a con artist does. They're always working some angle.
Like a mobster.
like a mobster, which we'll get into, because like to evaluate his personality, you have to take context into account. Some of his superficial charm that they present in the show could be a result of the fact that he had to be that way. You know, as a car salesman is super glib and has superficial charm.
But that's his job.
You know, the car salesman sees the customer and it's like, ooh, this is dollar signs.
Sure.
They don't give a fuck about that person, but they're going to be super charming.
Yeah.
Is that a psychopath? No, it's their job. So it's, you know, was Tony Soprano superficially charming in situations when it didn't even make much sense? That's the other thing I want people to think of when they think of psychopath, is they're not always the brightest bulb in the box. They make a lot of mistakes. They don't, because of their personality disorder, it gets in their way a lot of times.
I mean, you could make a case with Tony. You know, there was a lot of parts that he stepped on his own feet, right?
Which we'll get to, but with superficial charm.
Right. That's fair. Yeah.
Right. So I would say that he certainly had the capacity to be superficially charming, but he wasn't in a constant state of superficial charm, which most psychopaths are.
Right.
Like Ted Bundy. The other people I want to point out, like the Firefest guy.
Yeah.
Now, I can't diagnose him. He's a real human being. I've never evaluated him. But if you look at what's presented in the documentaries, he was extremely charming to people, right?
Yeah.
And in times when he knew otherwise. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And he definitely, one could say, was a con artist and knew he was conning people.
Okay.
You know?
You've convinced me to bring it down to 40.
Okay. Dirty John, you haven't listened to the podcast.
I did, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
So he is a classic psychopath.
Totally, yeah.
So when people think about a psychopath, the people and I'm glad you've listened to the podcast, Dirty John.
We did an episode on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, we've done almost 1,000 episodes. Someone asked the other day, like, I want to hear the borderline deep dive. And I was like, have we done a borderline deep dive? Anyway, Dirty John, he is a classic psychopath. When you hear his the descriptions that people give of him, he was always trying to work an angle.
Yeah.
Even when he was raging, he was trying to manipulate people to do something. Yeah. And so he was always lying. He was always on the take. That is a quintessential psychopath. Tony Soprano was not like that.
The reason I give him the 40, though, is because think about when he's having those arguments with Carmela. He's always still tricking her. Like almost always, right? When he's having arguments with almost all his associates, he's almost always tricking them. But I see your point that he has a lot of moments, at least that we see on the show, where his actual personality shines through fine. When
he's threatened, he resorts to certain defenses like that. But when he's just normal, a lot of psychopaths, like Dirty John, there's not a baseline normal kind of I'm a regular guy moment. You always have the personality disorder. Anyway, number 2, grandiose estimation of self. So narcissism.
He's definitely a quote unquote narcissistic person. He's certainly, I mean, you have to be to, like, we've had this conversation before, for him to think like, yeah, I guess I should be the head of this family and blah, blah, blah. But,
to be clear, what Berto is saying is a general term for narcissistic.
Yeah, that's why I put it in quotes. Yeah,
not the personality disorder, which is a completely other thing, which I would not diagnose him with.
Right. I guess what I would say is that he definitely has
narcissistic. He's narcissistic in the way you and I are narcissistic.
Yes, he has a very high self-assessment.
And doesn't have a problem. Like you and I are narcissistic enough to have a podcast where we believe that we are important enough and have smart enough things to say that other people would listen. Right. Otherwise, you and I would never have started a podcast.
Right. However, for example, he's nowhere near as narcissistic as Uncle Junior, as an example. Uncle Junior is like constantly threatened by someone not thinking the highest of him. Whereas Tony shrugs off occasionally. I mean, certainly he definitely has his temper tantrums, but he shrugs off, certain jokes or certain amount of like, he's also a little bit self-deprecating, things like that. Whereas an Uncle Junior is like, what did they say about me? They said what, and he'll kill people over it, right?
So that's narcissistic personality, but if we're talking specifically about the hair items, and Hare, H-A-R-E, it's a man who developed this test for psychopathy. So it's his construction of psychopathy, by the way, is grandiose estimation of self. So it's just like with Ted Bundy, he fired his lawyers and defended himself.
Right.
Which was a dumb move.
Totally.
Because he thought, I can do a better job than my lawyers.
Yeah. And I just don't see Tony Soprano to that level, because he'll admit, I'm not good at this or whatever. He is more aware of his limitations, not all of them. But.
Absolutely. Dirty John believed that he deserved all these things, and he was very entitled.
Yeah.
And he thought of himself, I'm a doctor and I could, Charlie Manson thought that he was a sex god, and Number 3, need for stimulation.
Yeah, definitely. He always needs to have gumas. He needs to have risky situations with the gumas. He needs violence. He needs not only violence, but he seems to need especially later in the seasons, he seems to put himself subconsciously into situations that are going to devolve into murder.
Yeah, again, context. It's like all the guys in the mob system, and a lot of the wives are a lot in that situations as well. But yeah, there's some evidence for that, in that he, with sex in particular, to some extent with drugs, lesser extent with violence. He also seemed to thrive in very high stressful situations.
Yeah.
It's not quintessential psychopathy need for stimulation. Like a classic need for stimulation is someone who is just constantly bored. Whereas with Tony Soprano, there were many scenes of him just chilling, watching TV with a sundae, and he seemed to spend a lot of his free time just kind of like hanging out at home.
Yeah.
Someone like Christopher Moltisanti was more of a need for stimulation kind of guy, where he had a really hard time just sitting still.
Just being, yes, that's true.
Number 4, pathological lying.
Oh, so this is one I could totally see the point of like, hey man, it's his job. So that's an interesting one, because he definitely lies with ridiculous ease constantly to everyone at all times.
Yeah.
However, not about trivialities, not about things he doesn't have to lie about.
Right. We call it instrumental lying as opposed to non-instrumental lying. Instrumental lying is like lying for some logical purpose.
Right.
When he is lying to Carmela about having a mistress,
right,
he's lying because he wants to continue having the mistress, and he doesn't want his wife to be upset.
It's not like he's saying, I have the largest pool in New Jersey.
Right.
Like, just because.
or you're trying to brag, but it's not really that important.
Right.
So that's a quintessential example.
No one shines their shoes better than my shoe shiner.
Yeah. It's odd lying.
Yeah.
So pathological lying is odd lying, where people will lie about things where you're like, why would you lie about that? It's such a weird thing to lie about. Like, for example, with Dirty John. He comes out of prison and he wanted love.
Yeah.
He goes on Match.com or something. He wants a companion. Nothing wrong with that. Why is he lying to people saying he's a doctor when he's a nurse?
Right.
I mean, being a nurse is
unnecessary jeopardy.
Yeah. Why would you do that? You eventually it's gonna come to roost.
In fact, if Tony had been doing that, he would have been caught so much sooner.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's. Ted Bundy did that. I think, the Firefest guy, I think, has evidence of that. It's really hard to know because we haven't really seen a full part of his personality.
Right.
But this one behavior that they did do in the documentaries was that spam email he sent out.
Yeah.
Was so obviously sleazy.
Yeah.
And lying that, and he knows he's young enough and he's an internet guy. He must have known, like, I'm under a lot of scrutiny, like a couple months after the Fire Festival.
Right.
Why would I send out this spam email?
Yeah.
Like, that's someone who can't help it. That for people who are psychopaths, that's the point, is they can't help it.
Yeah.
They have a personality disorder.
Yeah.
Narcissistic personality disordered people are not self-centered because they just like to, boost themselves up. They can't help but to do it, because if they don't, they have to face the emptiness of their soul, which is there.
Right.
For psychopaths, it's very similar. If they don't engage in this thing, they have to slow down and actually face the fact that they hate themselves deep down, or they don't even have a self deep down. And so they have to engage in these things that, in a sense, kind of distract them, or at least prop up this idea that they are entitled and they are good, and they can get away with things, and they are important. And so there's this compulsive nature in this. Ted Bundy, Firefest guy, Dirty John. These psychopaths, I can't say the Firefest guy because I don't know him well enough, but this psychopathic behavior always comes home to roost.
Yeah.
And with Tony Soprano, it didn't really, unless you look at the grand scheme, but that was more mob stuff. But yeah, some evidence of pathological lying. Like, for example, so there's two elements to pathological lying. One is that it's compulsive. The other element is that you lie easily, as you pointed out. When he murdered his nephew, Christopher, basically his son.
Yeah.
He murders Christopher Moltisanti, which is just a fun name to say.
Yeah.
He had no problem lying about it.
No problem.
Like,
Zero.
We didn't see any amount of busted upness about it.
You would never, with these kind of people, you would never be able to tell. You would be so shocked. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. He lied to Carmela, to Melfi almost all the time.
And he was so convincing, because he'd bring out that little vulnerability, and that was so manipulative, He's like, Carmela, you know that I can't, and he'd be like a wounded child all of a sudden, and he needs help.
Well, there were times when I think he was genuinely, pleading with her.
Sure, but he was... So I mean,
I think
it's natural for him to use it as
no, I think
manipulation.
these are. Well, I guess it depends on the eye of the beholder. But
Yeah.
when I saw those scenes, I see someone who genuinely actually wants Carmela to come back to him, but is being a super dick by not leveling with her and being honest with her. So I think that, from my viewing, the emotions and his intentions are genuine, but he's not being functional or a good husband by saying, and I'm terribly sorry for all the things I've done,
right.
and let me explain the things that I've done I haven't told you about, so that's my take. But you're saying you think he's manipulating her.
So granted, there were some scenes like when they are trying to get back together and stuff, but there are so many scenes where he starts trying to turn it around on her. Like it's her fault, either implicitly or explicitly.
But that's a common thing that people do when they're riled up.
Sure.
When, it's.
But he does it so well. He does it to everyone.
Believe me, as a couples therapist, everyone does it well.
All right.
Number 5, cunning and manipulative.
Yeah, completely. 100% on this one. He is... he knows how to go, for example, when he goes I just watched this one, in the first season, he's like, all right, I'm going to give Uncle Junior what he wants. I'm going to tell him he's in charge, And he knows Uncle Junior. He knows he's too narcissistic, or whatever he wants to call him, too egotistical to not be in charge, but he's going to make him think he's in charge. But then he's going to plan everything behind the scenes so that he's... And imagine those stakes. The stakes aren't like... oh, I might not get that promotion. It's like, if this gets found out, I am dead. And myself and most of my crew are dead. Yeah. But I don't care. I'm going to do it. I'm going to plan it.
Right. For most of us, if we were charged with having to have that conversation with Uncle Junior, we wouldn't be able to pull it off. One, our conscience would get the better of us. Or two, we just wouldn't be very good liars.
Right.
We wouldn't be as consistent with our delivery.
Right.
Other evidence that he was, and to be clear, my assessment is that, so on the hair scale, that you're either a 0, a 1, or a 2. Uh-huh. A 2 means you're high on that scale. 0 means you don't have any evidence, and 1 means you're kind of. I would give him a 1 on this.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because again, the classic psychopaths like Dirty John and Ted Bundy were extremely cunning and manipulative. Like they seem to be constantly manipulating. You know, Dirty John manipulated his. Did he marry her? But he was in a relationship with her for a long time. Do you remember the documentary? Yeah. There's that main woman.
And he like totally had her convinced
for years.
Yeah.
Manipulated her for years.
Yeah.
Got her money and manipulated her away from her own family. You know,
right.
Just a constant compulsion manipulation. Because to back up, the reason why a lot of psychopaths are doing the foundation of the lack of empathy and the cunningness and the lying and the manipulation and the superficial charm. You know, we tend to look at these symptoms as like this is the ground level of the conceptualization. No, these are the symptoms. The ground level of the conceptualization is the fact that they don't have a self. They don't know who they are.
Right.
They weren't given a chance early in life to develop a sense of who they are and what they want. They actually don't have goals, but they have general goals of like pleasure, you know, as everyone does.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy my life. They also were not given a chance to know their emotions, and they were modeled often, typically very chaotic emotional presentations for their parents. And so they actually never developed the ability to really understand what other people were thinking because their life circumstances were such that that just wasn't possible. Either they were abused or neglected or just chaos or abandoned or something. And so they will, you know, it's not like they wake up in the morning like, I choose not to have empathy for other people. It's actually not functional to not have empathy. You're going to live a much happier life if you do have the capacity for empathy. So what they do in life is they figure out, well, and this is through experience in their childhood, they learn, so if I just operate normally, a bunch of people get angry at me. Because I wanted something and I took it, and suddenly everyone's angry at me. So I got to like figure out other people. Oh, I see. Other people can be hurt. And when I do things to them, I get hurt. So if I need to get, and in order for me to get what I want, I have to manipulate them into thinking that I'm like them, and I need to act like I'm in their world.
Right.
So, and I have to manipulate, and because of the traumas that they've been through, they actually don't believe that other people will give them things naturally. So they believe they have to manipulate other people to give them love, like the Dirty John guy.
Yeah.
If he has no empathy or no feelings, why does he want to be in love so badly?
Right.
Well, it's because he wants attachments just like anyone. We tend to think, oh, psychopaths, they don't want attachments. They do. But because of their upbringing, their personality is such that they don't trust that they can get it, and when they do get it, they don't even really interpret it correctly.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand it. And so because they weren't given that understanding early in life. So all these 20 items in the hair are a behavioral presentation that results from the foundation of lacking a self, being terribly unhappy with yourself.
Right.
Not trusting other people, not being able to really absorb attachments, not trusting attachments, and trying to just eke out a little bit of pleasure in life.
Yeah. So I get that from the context of if a 2 means that it's a heavier manifestation of that underlying need showing up as manipulation and what's the other part of it?
Cunningness.
Cunningness. Then I get it. But it's hard to claim that the head of the mob there with all the examples, including like the freaking, you know, trying to convince Artie to like leave and then burning his place down and then lying about it and all these kinds of things. Like the friend that had the sports goods store and then they just totally defraud everything from him. Right. So, all the scams and things they pull. Well,
the sports store guy, he didn't manipulate. He just told him flat out, you owe us money.
Sure.
And you owe us.
But instead, like a normal person would be like, well, that sucks. Let's see. But he like comes up with a whole scheme out of it.
Well, one, it's part of the culture to do this.
Yeah.
The culture that they're in, the mob culture. And two, he's a one in that
Yeah.
he's able to do it. Like I was having a hard time coming up with an example where it was clean, because like the Artie example, that was a business decision.
Yeah.
With the sport example, that's not even really manipulation. With a lot of other things, it's like, well, these are business choices. You know, to lie to Johnny Sack.
Well, but think about.
But let me give an example. So the example that I thought of was Carmel. This is later on, which you haven't gotten to yet, and you're re-watching. But there's a point where if you remember, there's a part where Carmela is trying to build this house.
Yeah.
And she keeps asking Tony, have you talked to the inspector yet?
Right.
Have you leaned on the inspector yet?
And Tony doesn't want to, because that signifies her being further apart from him. So he's dragging his feet.
Right. Yeah. So he's manipulating her. Oh yeah. I'll get to it. I'll get to it later. Oh yeah. Well, Syl talked to him, and So this is lying. It's manipulative. So he's manipulating his wife to keep her dependent on him. Right. But then Adrienne gets killed. He asked Syl to kill Adrienne. One of the best scenes of the whole series. Yep. And now, months later, Carmela runs into Adrienne's mom. Yeah. And Adrienne's mom is like, I haven't heard from Adrienne. I think she's dead. Yeah. I'm 100% positive Chris killed her, or your husband killed her for some reason. Yeah. And Carmela is like shocked by this and goes home, and she tells Tony, like, I heard, is Adrienne dead? She starts getting this in her head. She starts kind of asking around. She starts, well, wait a second. Like, if Adrienne is in the witness protection program, or not witness, if she ran away, because that was a story. Like, she ran away from Chris. Well, surely she'd reach out to her mom, right? Like, what? So she's asking us. At that point, Tony leans on the inspection guy, gets the house going purely to get his wife to shut up about Adrienne. Yeah. So that in that situation, he doesn't have to do those things. Right. Like, it's not, there's another way, which is more normal, which is to say, Carmela, how about you and I have a date night? Right. Or I guess even more advanced, Carmela, I feel distant from you. Or Carmela, when you do these things, it somewhat threatens me and feels like you're not going to need me anymore. Right. You don't have to play these games. Psychopaths play games. Yeah. Always the game. It's never just communication between you and the other person. Right.
So like, to that, again, I'm not making the case of manipulation because he's a psychopath, but remember in the relationship he had with the cop? Yeah. Constantly manipulating him and then using him to, like, for example, to follow Dr. Melfi. Yeah. And then gain information that he could use to try to manipulate her.
But again, like, that's totally in line with what I understand from all the mob TV.
But that's not even related to a business or anything. That's just him being Tony.
But it's from my understanding of the mob in TV, in this world, the Sopranos mob world, cops were never to be trusted. You never really befriended them, and you were always trying to work some angle with them.
Sure, but we could say that whoever rises in those environments must be better at those things than the others.
Right. So
I think he is.
So he's capable. He's capable, and when he needs it, he uses it. Quintessential psychopaths, it's all the time.
Right. I'm not making the psychopath point. I'm just saying he's very fine. I think we agree. He's very, very good and capable at manipulation and cunning.
Yeah. Dirty John could have told the truth to the woman, I'm a nurse and I'd like to date you. Right. He would have got a date. Yeah. He didn't have to lie that he was a high-powered surgeon. Right. Number 6, lack of remorse or guilt.
I think in general, this is another one where you could make the claim, well, it's the environment he's in. But again, like, how far does someone stretch? He certainly has zero visible remorse or guilt about what he considers the business end of his dealings. So, like, I don't think he would lose sleep or even wink once over any of the murdered people that meant nothing to him, which were most of the people. Clearly, that wasn't true with Pussy and Chris I mean, superficially, he was fine. Like, he could lie all day long, but it obviously ate him up inside. And I think he felt some guilt about Carmela. So he did demonstrate some capability for feeling guilt.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say. Just to add some more details. And in fact, I'd put him at a 0 on this, because even the ones on this scale will look different than the way Tony did. You could make maybe 0.5, I'll say, like because of the fact that he didn't seem to have remorse about killing Jackie Jr., for example,
Right.
Meadows' boyfriend. It was like, you and I could not do that.
Right.
Even if we were in the mob,
Right.
I guess it'd be like other guys in the mob, you could see them being like, well, we can't kill Jackie Jr. Now, but a lot of guys in the mob would have been like, absolutely, you got to kill Jackie Jr.
Like, clearly, I bet you we would agree that Jackie Aprile is a psychopath, or very close to it.
Not Jackie, Richie.
Richie Aprile.
Right.
Right? Because
right.
he's the dysfunction,
Right.
He's got everything, and he kills on a spot, and
Well, so he's actually an interesting example. Ralphie is more of a psychopath.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe what
so
I'm thinking
Richie,
of is that...
Richie is more of a PTSD case, I would make.
Oh, interesting.
Someone who is highly defended because he feels scared a lot of times.
But he has almost zero empathy for anyone at any time.
Yeah.
Including himself.
Totally. So Ralphie and Richie Aprile both present higher on the scale of psychopathy for sure. Richie comes out of jail and instantly, cripples Beansy for almost no reason.
Yeah.
Just because he wants to make a point that he's back on the streets, baby.
Yeah.
And just ruins his friend's life.
Yeah.
He
doesn't beat him up.
Yeah.
He cripples him.
Yeah,
and he's happy about it.
Yeah, and he's no remorse.
He's sadistic for sure.
Right. So Richie is more of the sadist psychopath.
Right.
Where it almost seemed like he was just looking for an excuse to hurt people.
Yep.
Ralphie was less sadistic and didn't seem to be sadistic, but was way lack of empathy, way more lying, way more, when Ralphie kills Tracy by bashing her head against, the railing and walks away and puts his hand in the ice bucket and is like,
that's psychopathy.
And it's just like, what?
What?
And to see Tony's response to that of like, he feels so bad for her, and everything in his context in the mob culture is like, well, she was a prostitute.
Yeah.
She was a hua. She was a hua. You don't have empathy for a hua. 1, 2, you don't hit a made guy because she killed a hua.
Yeah.
Like you're not following so everything was pointing against him to have a reaction. Everything what he should have done is he, for his own instrumental means to stay in power of, to keep his good earning money, would be to say, okay, well, I guess that's what happened. But that's not what he did. He had compassion for this person.
Although, to be fair, to Tony's psychopathy traits, he really didn't go that far until Ralphie killed a horse. A true horse.
Right. Which, again, is another indication of non-psychopathy, is to care about animals.
For sure. But I guess what I'd say is, and maybe it's just his profession, but certainly Tony, outside of the circle of people that he gives a shit about, he doesn't give a shit.
Right.
He doesn't care what happens to them. If they die, they live, doesn't give a fuck.
Well, and if they did something that is a mortal sin to their culture, well, they deserved it. Jackie Jr. killed one of their... Jackie Jr. breaks into a card game and kills someone and steals from one of his card games. It's just like, well, you gotta die.
Right.
It's just, if we're gonna put an end, that's just the rules, man.
Right.
You broke a rule.
But then Tony also shows cases where it's like, it's not so much out of empathy. Like, for example, when he goes, what's Uncle Junior's henchman that
Bobby?
kills? No, not Bobby. In the first season.
Oh, I forget his name.
Okay. Anyways, that guy, he's kind of a dick. You know?
Yeah.
And Tony goes and pulls him out of his car, beats him up, and staples his chest. Right.
Yeah.
Is it because he's so bent out of shape about the guy he killed? No, it's because he crossed the line.
Yeah.
That's the only reason, right?
Well, yeah.
And he does it in a cruel way, right? Like, I mean, stapling someone and
So,
shit like that.
again, it's normal in that culture to do that. You could have seen Jackie Aprile, the nice guy who dies at the beginning. He would have done the same thing.
But I'd say that it's normal in that culture, in that culture has developed these people to a level that at least emulates some of these traits.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that's different than having the trait,
Sure.
as a personality trait. Having said that, I want to be clear. I am not justifying any of this fucking behavior. It's all bad. The mob culture is 100% bad.
Yeah.
There is nothing good about it. It needs to be pointed out that when I say, because a lot of times, and Berto, you used to do this too, and maybe the listeners are doing this. If I say that Tony Soprano isn't a psychopath, some people think that I'm justifying someone's behavior. Being a psychopath isn't a label for bad behavior. You can do bad things that don't get labeled in the DSM. And what Tony Soprano does and what this mob culture does is immoral, wrong, repulsive. In fact, watching this, so I watched it back when it came out on DVD. I would get the full seasons on DVD through Netflix, I believe, back in the day. And so this is the early 2000s, right? 20 years ago. And I loved it. And watching it again recently this year, 2019, loved it again for different reasons, but was really disgusted by the behavior in a much more profound way than I was back then. There is almost no characters aside from like Carmela and Adrienne,
maybe,
and some of these other people. It's the stuff that these people do. It's just, and there's so many things about it where I'm just like, dudes, like there's another way to live here.
Yeah.
Like you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Like
you don't have to shoot the cake, slam it into a meat grinder and then eat it.
And bring everyone in on it too. So anyway, but I want to, some of the other people who I thought he had some remorse for and that they exhibited was Gloria. I thought he had some, he was sad that she died. And he also
had her killed, but yeah, he had her killed, but yeah.
Yeah. How do you have her killed again?
He had, it wasn't Silvio as well, or not Silvio. It was the
other
other
guy.
dude, the twin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he had some remorse for Vito. The gay guy.
Yeah.
Pussy, as you said.
Yeah.
His cousin Tony. He had.
Yeah, that one was actually, I forgot how hard that hit him. Yeah.
Yeah. Artie,
Oh yeah.
He feels bad that he burned down.
He feels really bad.
I mean, when Artie is sad, he feels bad. And towards his mom, I thought he had a lot of feelings, lack of remorse.
Oh, and even Uncle Junior, like he had a back and forth with that.
Lack of remorse, seemingly kind of with Adrienne, kind of with Jackie Jr., threatening Meadows' boyfriend, her black boyfriend, like no remorse, just like I mean, I threatened him, but I don't. But again, Ralphie is a much more
By the way, one parenthesis is I think and I might have been more on this side before, so I'm only going to talk about the thing I said when we were doing the episode about. Or maybe it was either Fire or it was the one with the gal.
Elizabeth Holmes.
I don't remember which episode it was, but I did resent, not you, but I resented the fact that it seems like there was more care to label things that were self-damaging, but when it's someone that causes so much damage to society, their mind is normal. They're just kind of a dick. And I'm like, well, why did we define that mind as normal?
Right. But that's not the criteria. And if it comes across that way.
And for psychopathy.
I think that the key to understanding psychopathy is to read case examples of what we in the business call psychopaths. Right. And then contrast Tony Soprano with those people. And
I'm asking you people,
Yeah.
give me a new category that's not psychopathy that we can all laugh at.
How about just like an immoral asshole?
Yeah, I love it.
I want to talk a little bit about gender and mob culture, and because before moving forward, it's required to cheat in this culture. Like you need a guma. If you don't, then you look like a pussy or something, right? Yeah. And it's required to jeopardize your marital attachment. So, the cheating and the lack of remorse around that, or the manipulation around having a guma, is a part of the culture. It's just like, if you want to be in this club, this is what we do. Yeah. You can't be weak. You can't show empathy, or else, especially if you're the boss. Right. There's even episodes where they talk about that. Yeah. It's just like, you can't exhibit the fact that you have any emotions, because someone will kill you to care about your family, and to keep your family safe, and to keep yourself safe, and to keep your associates safe. You have to act like a psychopath. Yeah. You can't ask for help. You can't give in. You can't have real conversations. You can't. You have massive amounts of stress.
You can't let shit slide.
Right. Because if you let Jackie Jr. get away with it, well, then everyone's just going to try to knock off your poker games. Because you can't have a security guard at every poker game. You have to have severe consequences. There's death around every corner. The FBI is around every corner. You can't be nice to your wife. You can't give her oral sex, because you'll be seen as a pussy.
Right. And if you do, no one ever better find out.
Right. And so all of this stress is going to lead to and pent-up emotions and lack of attachment is going to lead to some odd things like anger and rage and lack of empathy. When you're burnt out on life, it's hard to have empathy for other people. Another part of this mob culture that they present in The Sopranos is he's only really allowed to be tender with his mistresses. Yeah. Like it's the one time when he can actually be tender with and kind of unbridled loving, physically, because it's a secret relationship. He knows he has control over it. He knows it's temporary, and he knows that he has all the power. Right. And it's so just to that. And so it kind of compels these guma, and I'm guessing, now that I'm thinking about it, that's why these mob cultures even have the gumas to begin with. Right. Because oftentimes they would show that in the show, where it was the one time that they were just kind of regular guys. Yeah. Just kind of hanging out, having a normal conversation, these like private little conversations, Anyway, number 7 in the hair psychopath scale items. Number 7, callousness and lack of empathy. So we've already basically been talking about that, so we don't need to go into that.
But callousness is...
Yeah, a little bit different.
That one, I think, again, who knows... I think the gestalt of all this is that it is quite possible that many people that rise in that culture that aren't technically psychopaths, like you said, they end up having to imitate psychopathic traits. Right. And then they sort of de facto become those things. So he's like ridiculously callous daily, all the time.
Right. So a good example of this is you are a soldier in World War II. Let's just say, for whatever reason, you, Humberto, live in Seattle, and you're 19 years old, and you're drafted into the Army, and you go to war, and you go into the Pacific, and you go to Iwo Jima, and there are Japanese soldiers who you suspect are starving and defending their territory, and you're scared. Day one, you get into the battle, bullets are flying over your head, friends of yours are dying, you're just traumatized. You're like, okay, well, I gotta, I want to kill these people to get them to stop killing my friends. You start shooting some bullets, blah, blah, blah. One thing, fast forward a few weeks. Well, now you see someone who's like bleeding out, a Japanese soldier that's bleeding out. They're not dead yet. And you shoot him in the head. Right. And you're just like, fuck that guy. Like, he could have been one of the guys who killed one of my guys. Right. And they would have done worse to me. Fuck that. And I've killed 3 other guys, and I've seen 10 other of my friends get killed. And that guy was just trying to kill me. Fuck that guy. I kill him. Okay. Right. So in that moment, lack of empathy, lack of remorse, callousness.
Right.
Is that a psychopath? No. It's context.
Yeah.
It's survival. So that's very important to understand. Ted Bundy did not have to do any of that shit that he did.
Right.
The Fire Festival guy didn't have to send that spam. He was compelled to do it.
Okay. So 1 second though, because obviously you're almost making it sound, which we wouldn't want to, as the mobster has no choice. Therefore, we should just send him to a mental institution. Ted Bundy didn't have to. Therefore, he should go to jail. But in reality,
no, anyone who commits, I don't know. Whenever we get to the justice system, I don't know the answer to that. My gut reaction is lock them all up. I don't care where it comes from.
It's just you were saying Ted Bundy didn't have to, but he has his own context, which is his brain telling him he does have to.
But that's why it's a personality disorder,
Sure.
is that it compels certain behaviors that are not to their own goals. If I believe Ted Bundy's goals was to have an attachment and to have power. We all want to have power in our life. We all want to feel like we have power. We all want to not feel powerless.
Yeah.
We all want to have closeness and sex, and most of us want to have sex. There are a lot of ways he could have done that in the normal ways, but because of his personality disorder, he didn't think he could get it in the normal ways, and so he exhibited these other ways that were, a result of his personality disorder. If you're in a context, you're either forced to do a certain thing or you're acculturated into a mindset about a certain thing. And that's a different thing. You take Tony Soprano and he goes in the witness protection program and his context is, I think sometimes he talks about like Scottsdale, Arizona or something, and suburbia. And he's given enough love and attention, and he's given a life that will actually be a good one. Then my contention is that he would only exhibit slight psychopathic traits at times, but for the most part, he wouldn't do it. You take a Dirty John and you put him in suburbia in a place that is conducive to his life, and his psychopathic traits will exhibit themselves from day one.
Yeah, which goes back to my thing. It was like the one is defined as the inability for that self-brain to kind of be conducive for that self-brain's best interests. But if you take it at a meta level, it is not in Tony or his family's best interest for him to do what he does in the longer term. So in some ways, whether nature or nurture, their brain patterns are now set in a way that are not conducive to their own well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, just limited possibilities. Yeah. Number 8, shallow affect. Superficial emotional responsiveness.
No, he's very emotional.
Right. There's no evidence. He displayed anger, sadness, joy, disgust, etc. As an example, when AJ attempted suicide, Tony was genuinely emotional.
Yeah.
Number 9, parasitic lifestyle.
By de facto, he is a parasite of all the victims of his mob operation.
That's really stretching the definition.
No, like literally, the mob, as you know, most often their racket is charging innocent people for tax, which is a parasite, right? But
again, that's essentially their job. Parasitic, Dirty John, quintessential parasitic lifestyle.
Yeah.
He never worked and parasited off of that woman.
Yeah.
Quintessential. When you read case examples of psychopaths, a lot of 95% of them are like that. They will manipulate their way into someone's lives. They will con them, and then they will just parasite off of them.
Yeah.
Poor behavioral controls.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say about 30%, because there were so many moments where he was cool as a cucumber
right.
when other people were losing their shit. Right. But he definitely had times when he was losing his shit against his own instrumental goals. Number 11, sexual promiscuity.
Mm-hmm. But not, yes, but not chronically or something. Just he always had to have someone on the side. He always had to.
Yeah. This is the one time when I'm actually going to go higher than you. He's classic sexual promiscuity psychopath.
Really?
Yeah. Like, especially rewatching it the second time. I mean, he was always looking. Like, there wasn't a woman who came past his eyeballs that he didn't have sex with or try to.
Yeah.
You know, he's alone with Adrienne for like a
Fair enough.
second. You know, he's known Adrienne for a long time.
Yeah.
He's alone with her for just a little brief moment. Boom, you can tell he wants to have sex with her. Number 12, early behavioral problems.
Yeah.
Do we know?
Yeah, but I mean, he got in trouble in school all the time. He was. We don't see all his young life, but he was most certainly.
We heard stories that him and Jackie used to do these things.
Yeah.
But again, hard to tell if he was, trying to impress his mob overbosses or something. But again, definitely not classic.
No.
A classic psychopath would be like, you're setting a lot of fires, you're stealing from your parents, you're always stealing from your friends, you're doing sexual assaults maybe, what other classic things? Shoplifting.
Yeah.
And just not any kind of clear reason for any of it. 13, lack of realistic long-term goals.
That's a tough one because it's like, on the one hand, yes, because he is clearly self-sabotaging his long-term goals frequently, but at the same time, he's running an operation for years on end.
Yeah. I would say he doesn't qualify for this. If anything, this show demonstrates, because he was a mob boss all 6 seasons and succeeded.
Yeah.
So every decision he made must have been at least somewhat right because there were so many threats that he overcame.
Yeah.
14, impulsivity.
Yeah, he showed impulsivity. It didn't, like you said, there were many examples of him
with self-control.
Self-control, but he, at the same time, like if there was an opportunity for some scam, he would do it. If there was an opportunity to get with some girl, he would do it.
Right. So 30%, I would say.
Oh, and I'd say like food and alcohol and drugs. Like he was very impulsive about those as well.
Again, there's other people who are way more impulsive.
Sure.
15, irresponsibility.
That's a hard one. Like he wasn't irresponsible to his duties as the head of the mob in general, although he was sometimes. There were times where he clearly was shirking his duties.
Yeah. If he was a classic psychopath, he wouldn't have been boss longer than a month.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have shown up to meetings.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have remembered things. He wouldn't have held his end of the bargain.
Yeah.
He would have been killed or demoted fast.
Yeah.
Classic psychopaths like Dirty John, Ted Bundy, they can't hold a job for longer than a couple weeks because people eventually are just like, Jesus, like you can't get anything right.
Yeah.
Again, and that's what I want to get across to the audience is people think, oh, psychopath, like this manipulative genius. No. You read case studies of psychopaths, these people have a lifelong pattern of failure.
Yeah.
Where they got $5 in their wallet and they're just trying to scam someone else out of, something to pay the bills, you know what I mean? Or to get that person to pay their bills. 16, not all psychopaths, but most. 16, failure to accept responsibility for own actions.
Oh yeah, regularly. That might be the highest for me is like I don't think he would blame himself almost in any circumstance. I mean, at least to others. Like,
yeah, the way he treated Dr. Melfi, the way he treated Carmela, he didn't seem to.
It's not his fault.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Now, again, could maybe deep down he had that,
Sure.
and the masculinity and the mob sort of eclipse that. The last few are always the ones that rarely apply, but apply to the classic psychopaths that you will meet in prisons and this kind of thing. Many short-term marital relationships, juvenile delinquency, revocation of conditional release, which is a prison thing, and criminal versatility.
We've had a discussion about the criminal versatility before. I think in this case, because you've always said like, no, it's more like, it's not versatility as in like they're good criminals. It's just like they're always doing crimes, right? But he's always doing crimes.
Yeah.
Of all sorts of types.
But like, if he was a psychopath, he's hanging out at Satriali's, and he would steal from his own business.
Right.
He would try to take Silvio's watch when he wasn't looking. You know what I mean?
Which I think he might.
He wouldn't do that.
Maybe not.
He wasn't
Silvio's.
compulsively criminal. He wasn't like petty little crimes.
I mean, remember, he would skim money for, like, he got the payment that Chris was supposed to pay to Uncle Junior. He would skim from that.
But that's all part of the game that they all play.
Well, but I mean, at what point does the game become his personality, right? Like in this case,
that's a good question.
What I'm saying is,
think it is.
Each one of these categories.
The only time you can, so that the test for if it's his personality is if it definitely can't be attributed to the job and shoots himself in the foot. The only time I could really point of, and it's hard for me to remember all 6 seasons, although I did just watch them all in pretty quick succession, was when him and Christopher, season 6, they see some guys with a bunch of wine cases. Yeah. And they pull up and they steal all the wine cases, and they shoot one of the guys. Yeah. So they didn't need to steal the wine.
They did not need to do that.
It wasn't like a big heist for money-wise. They made a little bit of money, but it was a big risk for a very low payoff. Very impulsive. Not what he would do. Actually, it was against his job. Anyone, his consigliere, I can't say that word, Silvio would have said, do not involve yourself in petty crimes. You're the mob boss. You can't, if you got caught, like what would we, and yet he still did it.
I think the thing that always trips me up is the word versatility, because like this guy was always scamming, right? He's like, what if we grabbed and we started charging that dude, or having him write fake prescriptions so we can charge the HMO? Yeah. What if we did, like, it's always like a scam. It's always a scam.
So I'm getting, I'm a little convinced by what you're saying. Maybe he's a 1.
Yeah.
But again, it's so hard to tell.
Sure.
Because they all did that, and that's the deal. Yeah. The mob's deal is looking for scams.
But maybe the better ones have more of that trait. Now, if you look at each one of these columns.
It's like calling me up. It's like, it's not a personality trait for me to look for topics for this podcast, right?
Fair,
That's not a person, but it's a part of my job. So I am always looking, like, I'm going through my life, I'm like, ooh, that would be a good podcast topic to do. Is that a personality trait? No, that's something that this is part of this job. I'm always
but if you're
looking.
better at it, that might say something about you. So like if Tony is better at that kind of thing, that might say something about it.
And I think that one is because he's smart and has learned from a lot of other hustlers, and 2, because he does lack some empathy.
All right. Now, one last thing is that, because I feel like since we already know, like you sort of did the mental gestalt to start with, which I did as well. I was like, he's not really a psychopath. Because if you judge the categories knowing that he's not, that is a different way to look at it than if you just judge the category. So if you, for example, just look at, is he always committing all sorts of crimes and like stealing and all sorts? The answer is yes.
Right. So if a psychologist were to evaluate him in prison, I suspect that they would give him a 2 on this. But
at least a 1.
Because according to the definition of criminal versatility, he more than meets it. But to me, the way that I conceptualize personality disorders, and the way a lot of other people in my camp do, is that it's not the symptom you look at, is the overall picture and where it comes from and the context in which it lives. And in my estimation, it's hard to evaluate that criterion because that's the context he lives in.
And fair enough, we are evaluating one specific character in the show. I will submit that having met characters in my life that are the kind of person that would be involved with stuff like this, the sense I get that it seems to be common among that, the trait that seems to be common is like when I meet people and you tell me what you do, like I'm never in my head thinking like, how could I scam this to my advantage?
Right.
But I have noticed that, and so I don't know if Tony in the show demonstrated this as much, but I think he did to some extent. But I do think in that life, the ones that are better at it seem to have this where they're always like, how can I bet you there's an in here for me.
Like when he meets Carmela's cousin who does the financial stuff. Yeah. And he's like, oh, well, let's work this relationship.
Right.
And then he works him to work on this like HUD scam thing.
Right.
Having said that, they presented it in the show where the guy actually proposed it, and then Tony's like, let's use this. But
and they were trying to make Tony, as a character arc, they were trying to make Tony ambiguous enough so that we would care for him.
Right.
Even though he's a monster.
Right. So, but you're right in that is a key element that's hard to put into criteria. Right. That is a major element of psychopathy, which is always on the take. And that's why I want people to understand about psychopathy is don't equate them with a killer. Because the vast majority of psychopaths never kill anyone and never want to. Equate psychopaths with a cunning con artist who never sees another person as another person, only sees that person as a ends to a means.
Right.
And the guiding principle for them are similar principles that we have, but they don't trust the normal venues to get those. They want pleasure. They want attachments, they want closeness, they want sex, they want a family, but they don't believe the normal way to get it will get them that because they just don't trust other people. Yeah. So they feel like they have to always be playing this game with you. And,
always be closing.
And when you're around psychopaths, you feel it in your gut if you have half a heart.
Yeah.
You'll be like, something about this person is eerie to me. And when I'm around psychopaths that I've treated before, I feel that way. There's a fear that you get with them. And it's hard, you can't put a figure on it.
Yeah.
Like even just 5 minutes of interacting with psychopaths, I typically will have that feeling in it. And afterwards I'm like, why am I afraid of this person?
Right.
Later on I'm like, oh, I get it because of that vibe. There's just something about the nonverbals that they give across that comes across, the conscious mind is like, oh, they're being nice. The unconscious mind is like, I don't think they're not doing all the normal things that they should be doing that should be nice stuff. They're acting nice. Yeah. And it comes across that way and you'll feel it. Anyway, let's take a break. And when we get back, I just want to talk about general Soprano stuff and general psychology of Tony stuff. What do you say, Berto?
Let's do it.
So, Berto, if Tony Soprano were to employ the audience to become a patron of the podcast and he was going to use his semi-psychopathic skills, what would he sound like?
Oh, man, I'm going to butcher this accent. Listen, yous. It's so bad. Okay. Look, I got a deal for you. Like, we can go in on this together. You don't have to like do much. All you got to do is you got to show up and like basically become a patron of the podcast. And nothing bad needs to happen to you and your family. And if you patronize us with enough money, then maybe I don't have to show up late at night at your house and knock on the window or knock the window out or anything like that. Afangul.
So, this is one of my favorite shows. It's up there with Game of Thrones, It's Always Sunny, Parks and Rec, The Americans, Black Mirror, Stranger Things, Fleabag. What's your favorite episode, Berto?
Okay, let's see. That'd be a little tough because I need to kind of review. Almost it's not tough because the season finale, like the series finale, is so good that I have to give it.
Why do you like it?
It is like it brings together all these threads, and it like it's the resolution of this very existential season 5 and season 6, and it brings it back together to the family. And right when you think you're gonna have some sort of closure, it basically rips your life out.
What threads does it bring together? Because when I watched it more recently, and I had the benefit of watching all 6 seasons in such quick succession, you know, that all the characters and storylines were in my mind. And I liked the final episode too. But I actually found that it was David Chase made this decision not to have a lot of satisfying wrap-ups the way that other shows would.
Yeah.
Like other shows, there would be this very clear, like Game of Thrones, the final episodes had extreme clear wrap-ups to all the storylines.
Right.
Whereas with this show, The Sopranos, I felt like there were a lot of storylines where you just never, you know, like, okay, well, what happened to those people and what happened to those people?
Yeah, but to me, what I mean is like Tony's arc, right? Because Tony's arc was really the only important arc in the show at the end. And the last 2 seasons, like the very beginning of the series starts with these existential questions, you know? And then the last 2 seasons, look, when I first saw season 5, I was like, I wasn't so sure. When I rewatched it, probably the 3rd time I saw it, I'm like, man, this is actually really, really interesting. And then season 6 is like super existential.
So name one of the existential questions.
You know, what is it all for?
And how does it answer that at the end?
Well, it tries to bring back like, oh, well, it's all about his family.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, or not, yeah, I guess unfortunately, it's still when it pulls the rug out, it's like, it's all about the family, which he probably fucked up.
Yeah.
And you know, it does bring closure to the war that the families were having, and it basically, you know, it brings closure to his relationship with Christopher, you know, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And it finally, I think, it brings closure to his own search for,
not the final episode with Christopher, but
no, the final series, like the final.
But I was asking your favorite episode, you know.
No, I still say the final episode is my final.
So do you think he's dead?
Episode. Yeah, I do believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But if I were gonna like say one that wasn't the final episode, that was really like one that I'll always remember, is the where he kills Ralphie.
Oh,
like that episode is intense, man.
yeah.
It's but there's a lot of great ones, so it's a little hard because like. Man, there's a lot of episodes like the Russian in the forest with Chris and
that's
probably my number 3.
That's
probably.
my favorite episode.
Yeah.
Pine Barrens, season 3, episode 11.
Yeah.
Christopher and Polly. Polly provokes this fight. They kill the Russian. They take him out to the woods. The Russian is still alive.
And we'll never know what actually happened to him.
And David Chase gets asked all the time, what happened to the Russian? And here's what he said. They shot a guy. Who knows where he went? Who cares about some Russian? This is what Hollywood has done to America. Do you have to have closure on every little thing? Isn't there any mystery in the world? It's a murky world out there. It's a murky life these guys lead.
Yep.
And by the way, I do know where the Russian is, but I'll never say because so many people get so pissy about it.
I love it. I love it.
It's quintessential David Chase.
Yeah, it's so good. Another episode that is in my top 5 is the pussy
getting killed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That episode is where they go in the yacht and they finally kill him.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of lead up, but that episode is just phenomenal. And then I also, you know which one? The one where the FBI is setting all the wires and all the thing, and they have the dun 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 dun. That's a great episode.
Yeah,
but it's really hard to pick, man. There's so many greats.
My second is College, season 1, episode 5.
Oh, yeah.
In which
so emotional.
Tony takes Meadow to see colleges, and Tony sees an old mobster.
Yep.
in the witness protection program
Yeah.
that he has to confront. It's lovely because it's two stories.
Yep.
There's Meadow, and she's confronting him like, you're really in the mob, right? That kind of stuff. And then this non-dialogue, sequence of events where Tony's like trying to figure out if he is the guy, because he can't really tell if he's the guy. Anyway, so let's get into his early life. What do we know about Tony's early life that may have led to him having his personality?
Well, obviously his father, his uncle, everyone around him were in the mob. And not only was that obvious because like everyone talked about it and stuff, but he saw the violence all the time directly, including where he sees his dad chop off the guy's hand or whatever. And he experienced the dichotomy of like the home life, like pretending, and then seeing what Uncle Junior and his dad were really up to. So that was certainly not, that would mess up a lot of people.
Yeah. The personality of the dad is presented as a fun, upbeat person who was sexual and seductive of people, also very violent and powerful, very charming, always in control, non-emotional, just very steady, I suppose, and upbeat. Dad went to prison for a while Tony was young, and they told Tony that the dad was in Montana being a cowboy. Just imagine that. Your dad disappears and you don't have your dad anymore.
Right.
You're told he's in Montana being a cowboy. That's got to be hurtful.
You're like, what about me?
Yeah. I mean, essentially that happened to you. I mean, your mom just disappeared. That's not just a small thing.
No.
That's a very hurtful thing to one's attachment.
Right.
Mom, chronically upset, distant, withholding, shaming, rejecting, guilt tripping, histrionic, a martyr. She literally pushed Junior to kill her own son.
Yeah.
And this is a person who is toxic and difficult, always a struggle. Nothing's ever good enough for her, and that's gonna wreak havoc on your personality.
By the way, it gets a little hard to tell there because she was also becoming senile, so there's a couple of those scenes where it's like, yeah, clearly this is her personality, but then it's also unclear if she's always super aware of what's what. And like they go back and forth with that because there's moments where Tony's like, oh, she's evil. And then there's moments where like, she really doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
But in the flashbacks, she is...
Oh, in the flashbacks, yeah.
She's awful.
Totally. And I will also say the sister is very interesting because she's a piece of work. Janice, and of course because of her environment, but she seems narcissistic. Like I would say she probably has narcissistic personality disorder, and she is a wreck, a constant wreck. Think about how many people died because, like, of her.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's maybe a little unfair, but basically. Yeah. Why did she end up involving herself with all these very dangerous people right around Tony?
Well, you could say it was just what she knows and she's marrying her dad or something. But the emotional exhibition that we would call her and her mom in my conceptualization is what we call histrionic, which can look narcissistic, but it's more of a look at me kind of thing. I have emotions, look at me. And certainly narcissistic people can be that way, but I would characterize it more as histrionic. So Tony Soprano, Arrested Development, never developed a strong self, was never able to, never given the love and attention he needed, we can assume. I mean, dad was perhaps caring and paid attention enough, but probably not a little bit, but not enough. Plus, he was gone in Montana being a cowboy. Mom doesn't look like ever would have given her son enough love and attention. So he develops this bad working model of other people where you can't trust other people to love you and you can't, there's no amount of, with Carmela, you can't, because of the way he was raised, he doesn't believe that he can be like, Carmela, I'm scared. I love you. I want to be with you. I'm sorry. Let's make up, the way that securely attached people would. He doesn't believe if he says that it's going to work out. And so he doesn't do that. And two, when he is hurt by her, he attacks because he's so hurt that he's trying to communicate his hurt through that.
Yeah.
Had to rely on himself, which develops this, pseudo or this minor psychopathy, minor narcissism, avoidant attachment, definitely. So yeah. And the other thing in his early life that we can point to is that everything was a fight all the time. Parents are fighting all the time, siblings fighting all the time. And so you see this in the show. It's just like there's conversations that happen where Tony would actually give in eventually, but he would fight about it the whole time.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, well, hold on, let's think about this. I'm not quite sure, let's talk about it. He would immediately go on the attack and be like, so what, and he would just oppose. And then later on he'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like Carmela says, I want to invest in stocks.
Right.
I want to get my cousin in here and talk about buying some bonds. And he's like, what,
I don't provide for you.
Yeah, just constant fighting. And then eventually he's like, okay, let's do it. Panic attacks. So they do that. Let's talk about that for a second. I thought that the panic attacks were not entirely poorly written. So there's a lot of accuracies to it, like the sudden onset, the fact that he thought he was having a heart attack. But the fact is that most panic attacks, people don't faint.
Yeah, that was a little different, certainly from my experience. And his very first one was fainting when he was a kid.
A lot of them, he was fainting. Yeah. So, but certainly you can. So I'm not going to say that it's you can absolutely faint from panic attacks for sure. And they seem to come on when the writers wanted it to come on. Like he had a lot in the beginning, and then he would only occasionally have them later on, which is somewhat accurate. The thing that really bothered me about the show was Dr. Melfi. Dr. Melfi, the first time I watched this show, when I was a therapist when I watched this show 20 years ago, Dr. Melfi's scenes kind of irked me, but not entirely. Watching it this second time around, I could barely watch those scenes. They were so bad. The therapy in this show and the presentation of really most of the mental health professionals, except for her therapist, by the way, Elliot, is so bad. The ethical problems, the Dr. Melfi's treatment is just so cringeworthy. I want to do a full series just on her, by the way. But anyway, the treatment of the panic attacks, the writers seem to be saying that it's very psychoanalytically oriented in that as she's treating his panic attacks, she's like, tell me about your mother.
Yeah.
That's not how you treat panic attacks. Like, you can't, to treat your panic attacks, you can't talk about your mother. That's not going to fix your panic attacks. There's not an ounce of proper treatment for panic that she ever engages in the entire time.
Which would be more like self-awareness of your body and the moment, and like mindfulness and things like that.
Right. And a number of other things in that realm, which I won't go into, but not, talking about, and the way that she even did it too, it was just like, essentially she equated his panic attacks with his unexpressed anger at his parents, which is just such a trope for psychoanalysts to think,
But is it not fair to say that, like, let's say she had been doing the treatment of how to handle the panic attacks, but certainly he had a ridiculous number of unresolved, unaddressed, untalked about issues that could be causing all the underlying bricks that would have him be anxious and all these kind of problems, right? So
yeah, maybe in part, but relationally anxious. But
like, I think of it like from my perspective, when I went into therapy, if I had just learned like how to deal with like when it does happen,
Yeah.
like that's great. But if it keeps happening all the time because I'm not doing work on like what's making me so anxious, like what is my...
No, I don't think so. I think so. So you had a lot of goals in therapy. One of them was to help with your anxiety. Your other goals had to do with being fulfilled in your attachments.
Yeah.
And without that, you can be anxious, but you're not going to have panic attacks. You might be emotionally upset and alone and scared and hurt, but you're not going to have panic attacks. Your panic attacks could emerge from loneliness, I guess, but it has to be chronic, I suppose, growing up.
Well, but isn't it fair to say, because like Tony, there's times where he wanted to quit and stuff like that. Like he wasn't just there for the panic attacks after a certain point.
Well, so here's another complaint I have about the way it's presented in the show is at no point from what so I have to be a little careful because I only watched maybe the first 5 to 10 sessions with Dr. Melfi in this most recent rewatch. I was so disgusted by the therapy and actually just kind of bored that I would skip over those scenes. So at least in the first number of seasons, there isn't a single mention of why he's in therapy, other than the fact that he wants to not have panic attacks.
Well, originally, that's right. That is literally the mention. It's like he was told he needed to see someone.
And later on...
by the doctors.
Unless you can tell me something that I skipped over, there's no mention of why he's in therapy.
Well, he doesn't tell her this, but he starts going... because at one point he quits in season 1, and then he realizes that something she said... at least he twists it to be like, oh, I see how I could deal with Uncle Junior. So then he's like, oh, actually, this is really useful. And that happens multiple times.
How is it useful to him?
Well, he thinks it's useful because she was trying to give him advice about his relationship with his children and about how you need to sometimes make him feel like they're in control. And then he's like, oh, I should use this with Uncle Junior. And so then he brokers the peace with him. And then he's like, oh, maybe there is something to this. So I'm not saying that it was actually being effective. Okay. In fact, that gets brought up multiple times that she starts getting like, I don't think this is helping you at all. I think it's doing more harm than good. But he thinks that he's getting all these little tools and tips for how to be a better mobster.
I don't know. The way that most of the sessions played to me was, he would start talking about something that was on his mind.
Yes.
In the way that he sees things.
Yeah.
She would judge him and confront him and use just the dumbest of language, by the way. Just like language that I don't even understand. I'm like, why would you use that word,
Sure.
Anyway, but just tons.
Which played well for the show, but it's terrible therapy.
Right. Played well for the point that David Chase was trying to get across, which is that psychoanalysts are in their ivory tower and elitist or something and don't really understand their patients or something.
Well, sorry, but potentially, yeah, but it did advance the plot though.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So well, one could argue that they didn't need to be as long, honestly.
Sure.
Like the sessions, eventually I was just like, God.
But remember that there were all these dynamics, like his attraction for her, his trying to defend her outside of like there was a lot of plot related things that have nothing to do with whether she's good or terrible.
Yeah. And I need to rewatch it to see, but I kept, as I was watching these sessions, I was like, Dr. Melfi, what are you treating?
Sure.
Like if you're treating the panic, okay. Sure. But there were so many things that she did, particularly later on, because the panic became less of an issue.
Yeah.
Where I was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
But so actually, let's just go into this in terms of my notes on this. From Reddit, I actually read this, which I thought was pretty good. Just someone talking. I always thought the show was a criticism of psychology. All of the psychologists and psychiatrists were either enablers or incapable of helping their patients. Melfi fed Tony bullshit about how he wasn't to blame for his behavior. So that's kind of a simplification of that. But a lot of Dr. Melfi's messages to Tony was kind of along those lines. But it was only when he was, when he was blaming himself, then she would say, well, you realize your mother was a terrible person.
Yeah.
When he wasn't blaming himself, she would blame him.
Yeah.
So again, plot oriented, I guess we're trying to get inside the head of the mob boss, I guess. We're trying to, and we're also trying to have some kind of dialogue with someone, outside of the mob context. But as far as therapy goes, all she did was judge and confront and oppose him, which is not therapy.
I will say that if David Chase's goal was to point a critical eye, I think he failed with the layperson, because when I saw the show, it actually legitimized in my mind, I think that was part of the point. It's like, even a mob boss might have to have some help mentally. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, which I think softened the ground for when I had to go to therapy. And so it's I think with the lay people, it actually sort of brought therapy into the mainstream. Even a mob boss might have to go to therapy.
Yeah, and there were reports of a lot more men going to therapy after The Sopranos came out. Melfi's psychiatrist, Elliot, was afraid of Melfi. This is from the Reddit guy.
Yeah.
Melfi's psychiatrist, Elliot, was afraid of Melfi and never stood up to her directly. The only time Melfi is told that she's being an idiot is at the dinner party, and she immediately lashes out at her doctor. So this is, again, part of this is this person's perspective of just anyway, my point of reading this section is that it points to what a lot of people, I think, pulled away from the way Melfi did therapy, which is a stereotype of therapy, which is therapy is about confronting and judging and telling you how you're an idiot.
Right.
You're doing it wrong. You're not admitting that you hate your mother. Yeah. And you want to have sex with your dad. What's wrong with you? This show really propagated those ideas because Melfi acted that way. And then this guy's on Reddit, he's like, and Melfi's psychiatrist, who's the only one who is actually kind of listening of all the mental health professionals, he's like, and
he didn't confront her.
He never stood up to her directly. Yeah. Therapy is not standing up to your client. When my clients sit down I don't stand up to them.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Meadows' doctor, this is what he goes on. Meadows' doctor tells Meadow to drop out of school and go backpacking through Europe. Who the fuck would tell a struggling college student to run away from their problems? So in this instance, again, this exhibits that misunderstanding of what therapy is. From his perspective, that's bad advice. But what I'm going to say is that Meadows' doctor should never have said anything to Meadow about what she should do.
Of course not.
She should be helping her in a more fundamental way. What Meadow decides to do with her life, like drop out of school or go backpacking, is up to Meadow.
But see, okay, totally agree. I agree basically 1,000%. However, as a counterpoint, this is why I, as a layperson, actually felt that there was value to Dr. Melfi, because the whole premise is shouldn't she be saying, no, I can't treat you because who you are, and I'm going to judge what you are and who you are, therefore I can't treat you. But instead she, dragging her feet many times, said, I'm going to try. Now, maybe she's a terrible therapist.
Yeah, try what? That's the whole thing. What is she trying?
Try to help him.
What is she doing to help him?
Well, I mean, wouldn't you say that if one can go to therapy to become a better member of society and one's family and oneself, that would be good?
If that's the goal that the client has. But that's not Tony's goal. Tony's goal is not to get out of the mob and stop killing people.
Well, but a therapist shouldn't just do whatever the client's goal is. Because what if the client's goal is I want to be a better mobster. I want to kill more people.
Then the therapist says, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I insert my own goals in there.
Well, but Tony wasn't saying that, right? And Tony...
So here's what I would have done. I would have been like, okay, Tony, you're in a mob. You seem to be struggling in a lot of ways. You have panic attacks. You're depressed at times. I feel put upon by a lot of people. You've been through a lot of shit. Your parents were, questionable. Your mom is still kind of a piece of work. Here's what I'm going to offer you. you can come here and we can work on something that I can help you with. Maybe you want to work on your anxiety. Maybe you want to work on your depression. Maybe you want to work on just exploring your life and figuring out what you want to do with your life, what you want to do with your relationships. Maybe with your marriage, you're having mistresses. You seem to have a lot of strife around that. It's not my place to judge you, but maybe there's something there. Maybe what you really want is a closer relationship with your wife, and maybe you won't need these mistresses anymore. Maybe you don't want to be married to Carmela. I don't know. But I'm here to explore that. Maybe we could explore that, but you have to ask me to explore that with you. Maybe you have some existential questions about the meaning of your life and why you're here on this planet and what you're doing. But you have to ask me for help with that. I can't help you with that if you don't say that's what you want. And if you don't want help with those things, and you can't come up with anything else, then there's no point in us wasting your time.
Yeah, and
but
that's
not what she
approach.
does. That's not what she does. Whenever he starts to suggest that he doesn't want to be in therapy, and this happens later, which is much more prevalent later, she convinces him to stay in. She judges him, say, "Oh, isn't it interesting that you want to quit therapy?"
Right.
And grasps at him and keeps him in therapy. And so,
but she's also getting codependent, right? Like there's this aspect, like
there's all sorts of fucked upness going on there. She's attracted. She wants to have sex with him.
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of fucked upness, and at no point when I watch these sessions, am I like, why are they talking about this?
Right.
What is the point of this conversation? She's just opposing him. All she does is oppose him, which is not only bad therapy, but abusive, harmful therapy. One could argue that if this was a real case, that many people died because she fucked it up.
Probably. But I could at least imagine a lot of people, a lot of therapists, unfortunately feeling like they were trying to do good by trying to help that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of this. I'm watching this and
maybe
I'm
it's
like,
realistic.
so it is.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm going to read a quote. So there's actually a book that I've owned for years called The Psychology of the Sopranos.
Yeah.
Written by a very renowned person in my field named Glenn Gabbard. He's like, top 20 authors in my field. And he, I'll just read from his book. He wrote an entire book. And he's not known for writing books about like pop psychology. He normally writes like hardcore psychoanalytic books and stuff. But he writes this book called Psychology of Sopranos, published around the time that the series was still being aired. He writes, "Not only is the therapy an arguably accurate version of what actually happens in our counseling rooms, but the writers are blessed with an extraordinary psychological sophistication." So this man believes that not only is this accurate therapy, but it's very sophisticated.
Which means that it is accurate.
So he goes on to say, Lorraine Bracco received an award at an event for creating, quote, "the most credible psychoanalyst ever to appear in the cinema or on television."
Which might be true.
So the American Psychiatric Association or the American Psychoanalytic Association, actually, I believe. Yeah, American Psychoanalytic. So not only Gabbard, but also other psychoanalysts thought this
it was written
extremely
20 years ago.
Well,
and the field it's 20 years later.
It always kind of baffles me when I hear that, but it makes sense. Psychology moves at a snail's pace. I'll give you another example. So that idea of like that was 20 years ago means nothing in our world. Things don't change that quickly in my field. Things are almost identical as they were 20. I've been a therapist this whole time. I'm here to tell you they're nearly identical. There are some differences in terms of like payment and that kind of thing. But in terms of
certainly the public's understanding of it is changed radically.
Right. But we're talking about psychoanalysts looking at another psychoanalyst on TV. So if this was depicted today, they would have seen it the same way. Let me give just another example while I'm on this rant train is I was at a presentation one time as an audience member, and the person presenting was presenting to a lot of novice clinicians. And I was a professor anyway. I wasn't one of the novice clinicians. And the presenter was presented some research from like 1997 or 2005.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're going through that, and then someone raised their hand and there's like, well, you know, it's all that's fine and good, but, you know, it's kind of old research. And I can't remember the exact research topic or the finding, but it was one of those findings where I was like, well, it's probably applicable to today. And plus, 2005, it's not that long ago in the scheme of psychological research.
Right.
But to this person, it was just like, oh, it's ages ago. Things are so different now. In our field, things are... we're, you know, again, they move at very slow paces. Anyway, it's not like saying, like if someone wrote an article about Facebook and you found out that it came out in 2006, you'd be like, well, you know, that's a completely different world. Anyway.
Sorry, but I guess from the outside looking in, like even the fact that they picked a psychiatrist is very interesting, right? It wasn't a family and marriage therapist. It was a psychiatrist.
Yeah. So, and a psychoanalytic psychiatrist, which is actually more relevant because there are plenty of marriage and family psychiatrists, but this was a psychoanalyst. So there's two things here. One is this is East Coast psychoanalysis, which this was born out of and is depicting, which is very different from Seattle psychoanalysis, by the way. So apparently this is very accurate.
Yeah.
Which is abhorrent, because if this is actually what psychoanalysis is supposed to look like,
right?
I feel sorry for every single client. There's no goal. This clearly, Melfi has a completely other set of goals that she doesn't even illuminate him to. And
her demeanor, even from the very start, is very sort of passive aggressive, judgmental.
Yeah, like angry and. Not compassionate, not empathetic.
Which, to your point, that she should have just reclused herself.
She should not even be a therapist, in my view. I don't think any of her clients were benefiting by her.
But if I give her the benefit of the doubt that these bad traits only came out because he was a mobster and she didn't know how to deal with it, she should have just not dealt with it.
I don't know. I mean, in her conversations with her therapist, Elliot, she seemed to have like a lot of disdain for all of her patients.
Oh, that's true. Well, is this maybe one of those cases, and maybe you're right, maybe she's not meant to be written as a great therapist.
Right. So that was the other thing that I thought was, because as I was rewatching it, I was like, oh, you know, typical, this writer just doesn't know how to write a therapist. But then Elliot, her therapist, is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but pretty good. And I was like, oh wait, at least they know how to write a somewhat good therapist. So they're purposely writing a shitty therapist.
And remember that there's eventually those scenes where he's like, he gets super angry. Like, I don't even know I don't think you've helped me one bit. Like this whole time, I don't think anything has helped, you know?
Yeah. And at that point you say, you know what? Maybe you're right. What are you coming here for? Maybe I misunderstood why you're here.
Right.
But instead she's like, oh, very interesting that you say that, you know, that kind of shit. So we don't have time to go into it, but they do present depression on the show for him and for AJ, I believe. They talk about alexithymia for a bit, the inability to, you know your own emotional state.
What is it? Alexithymia?
Alexithymia.
Oh.
And it's a word that we put to when people have a hard time describing their emotions.
You know, when I heard that word in the show, I just didn't know how to feel about it.
And it's true that Tony Soprano does have emotional regulation and awareness issues. A lot of the people in the show do. Because of that arrested development, that lack of self, he wasn't reflected emotions growing up and thus doesn't really understand his own emotional state and can't really communicate about it. But in the way they describe it in the show, it's like this diagnosis upon high, which is, it's kind of a silly way. The main thing I want to talk about here in terms of his psychology, psychopathy, that's what people are interested in. But the thing I want to talk about is his attachment, which we've basically been talking about so far. But early in life, he learned that he couldn't depend on other people. And so he had to make a choice. I either chase other people or I depend on myself. That's the quintessential why in the road that people come to. He chose, I'm going to depend on myself. I'm not going to chase other people. And so I'm going to become somewhat narcissistic, and I'm going to avoid closeness with other people. I'm going to assume other people can't really meet my needs, and I'm going to be staunchly and pathologically independent with a vast sea of dependence below the surface that will only squeak out under certain circumstances. Yeah. Like whenever Carmela wanted to leave him, he couldn't let her leave him.
Yeah.
He was desperate for her to stay. When he was with his gubas, his mistresses, he let that sort of tenderness come out.
Yeah.
With Christopher, he let some tenderness come out. And but you could tell that he was lonely, he was upset, he was rageful because he doesn't ask for help. And he's trying to get by on his own. People will develop anxiety as a result of that, or they'll drink to cope, or they'll run, they'll chase sexuality to cope. Also, people on the avoidance spectrum will be attracted to people on the borderline and histrionic spectrum, which the big point with Gloria was that Gloria is supposed to be someone with borderline personality disorder. And the reason why
she was scary, man.
Yeah. And the reason why they work together was because the avoidant person runs and the borderline person chases.
Yeah.
And so the net result is closeness. Lots of mother issues. Mother could be, as I said, histrionic, borderline, narcissistic spectrum, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so the other thing we can talk about is erotic transference, which you talked a little bit about. It's related to attachment injury. So because you have become pathologically independent and suppressed all of your dependency needs, you have this vast sea of need for closeness and nurturing and mothering and attachment and love, but you suppress it. You always keep it down. Gets married, keeps it down. Has mistresses, keeps it down. Has friends, keeps it down. Finally finds a psychoanalyst because of the panic disorder thing. This person is stable, doesn't ask anything of him, listens, is always there.
Right.
It seems to be caring, and all of your needs come pouring out at that point. And they manifest not only in, I want you to be my mother, but the way that we as adults try to get people to be our mothers is to marry them.
Yeah.
I want you to hold me day and night. I want you to feed me. I want you to be there for me. I want you to hear me cry. And we categorize this in our conscious mind as wanting to have sex with or being romantically attracted to. And I know a lot of you listeners have had this happen to you and are going through this right now. It doesn't mean it's invalid. Doesn't mean it's not true. It just means it's a thing. It's real. The love is real. He really wanted to have sex with Dr. Melfi. In some ways, you could say he was falling in love with her.
Yeah.
But because of his, relational traumas, that's why it was happening.
By the way, there's this dream in the first season that's very, very well done in some ways it's like too perfect, but it's still I like it. The scene starts with him looking at Dr. Melfi in her office, and he's looking at her legs, and she's wearing a short skirt, and the camera pans up, and it's obvious that he's like attracted to her in that moment. But then he sees one of his associates walk by the window. He's like, "Who's that?" And then it's clear that it's a dream because he like looks outside of her office and all his coworkers are there, and they're all kind of like, "What's up?" Blah blah. And then he walks back in, and it's Dr. Melfi's turned into his mother.
Yeah.
It was very, very telling.
Yeah, those dream sequences were just so silly to me. I just did not like them.
Really?
Yeah.
With like the pussy and the fish and all that stuff?
Yeah, a little bit of that I think would have been okay. But they're overly long, and I thought, kind of masturbatory in some ways, just like David Chase just really wanting to indulge himself with dream sequences. There's a reason why when someone says, "Ooh, I had an interesting dream last night," there's a reason why you don't want to hear their dream, because it means something to the person that had it, but it means nothing to you because you know it didn't really happen. It's like saying, "I just had a daydream. Let me tell you about it." It's like, well, it didn't really happen, so it doesn't resonate with me.
But it was such a so I found it a compelling way to, because the whole show's about Tony and his mind's working, and so like the dream sequences, even though they were too perfect in a way, they were a great way to get across all the mess that was in his head.
Too long, too perfect, too obvious, and just, I don't know. To me, the subtleties that this show presents in the regular part of the writing, I thought was degraded with a lot of the dream sequences. In fact, as I got more into the seasons, I would skip over the entire. Yeah.
Oh, the dreams were some of my favorite
Especially
things.
when he was, in the hospital with his.
Oh, that was some of my favorite stuff.
God, it was so dumb. It was like, I get it. He's having a dream where he's a salesperson and he's running into existential questions about death. Like, oh, it feels like the writing for the mob stuff and the family stuff felt like an adult. The writing for the dream sequences felt like a teenager.
I love it.
So let's wrap this up. Talk about what I liked and didn't like about all 6 seasons. Love the acting. Edie Falco, James Gandolfini, just flawless acting in my book. Totally believe that they were those characters. Depth to Gandolfini and Falco's emotional expression. Totally. Unique emotions complex emotions being expressed when they were acting. The subtlety of, and of their facial expressions or their nonverbals. It was just an amazing acting job. Just so consistent, and so many scenes where they had to act, the thing that's most striking is Gandolfini is that in real life, he's a super nice guy.
Yeah. I've seen many interviews with him, and it's like, wow.
He had to do all these techniques to get him into the mood of the character because it was so different from who he was. He would like have to run around or like smack himself in the face, and because it was so, he couldn't just naturally turn that on.
And it's crazy because when you see some of those scenes, it's like he can become such a scary monster one minute, and then like this like loving father and family figure the next, and then like this like manipulative like asshole, and like all the range, and it's like, wow. And
it all coheres into one personality.
Yeah.
It's like everything was believable.
Yeah.
That's a feat that Gandolfini, the writer, and the directors pulled off. Not cheesy, the show for the most part. It wasn't it was not afraid to make Tony unlikable.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy and much more mainstream to, you make Jaime Lannister lovable throughout the show, right? You make Tyrion lovable. At the beginning, Tyrion and Jaime are hateable characters. You even kind of make Cersei likable a little bit. Tony became more unlikable as the season progresses.
Yeah.
He becomes less redeeming. Like, he's more of an asshole. He's more of a jerk to Carmela, Yep. He's more of a jerk. He's more of a bully.
And they did that, like you said, in general. Who becomes more redeemable? Carmela starts doing stuff that you're like, well, that's still quite like dependent and enabling and
right. And she completely gives in, essentially.
Yeah. And like same thing with Dr. Melfi becomes even worse of a therapist and more embroiled in the whole thing. Everyone does. Like everyone goes worse.
Right. It would have made so much more sense to make some hero at the center.
Who's going to be the savior here?
Like you could have totally imagined another writer where Christopher Moltisanti emerges from the mob, goes to Hollywood, and becomes a writer.
Right. Or at least, he finds his soul and turns on everyone, whatever. Yeah, totally.
The storyline isn't very neat. There's a lot of storylines that don't really wrap up well, but again, as David Chase said earlier, it's like, look, the world is messy.
In fact, many cases where you as a normal Hollywood viewer want certain things to get their comeuppance or wrap up in a certain way. Like, oh my gosh, can't wait for the scene where Tony finally gives it to Richie April. Oh wait, his sister just shot him because of a stupid argument?
So I imagine the same internet context around this show as there was around Game of Thrones.
Right.
Imagine like the amount of hatred.
Yeah.
They'd be like, well, so what happened with the Russian?
Right,
I thought we were going to have, Clegane Bowl. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, very cool endings, like the ending of season 3.
Oh, totally.
It just ends with the whole season. The final scene is a boat in a bay blasting
the
music at that lawyer guy.
Yeah.
That's the end of the season.
Yeah. And remember the end.
It's not Tony looking off into the sunset.
Right. Remember the end of, I think it's the end of season 1 where, doesn't it end with the FBI's org chart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With them just changing.
Yeah.
Very consistent personalities for the characters. Showed a lot of end of life stuff.
Yeah.
Which is not typically considered entertainment.
Yeah.
A lot of drug addiction stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of enabling. A lot of stark. One of the first in-depth depictions of what heroin addiction looks like, and how much of a grip it can have on your life. And it, had these little moments that if you weren't really paying attention, you're like, oh, Chris is going down the slippery slope. Showed snotty teens. It, again, a better way to write that would be more entertaining to people would be to make the teens cute.
Yeah.
Or to make them snotty, but then nice at times.
Yeah.
AJ was basically a dick the entire time.
He was a burgeoning mafioso as well.
Meadow, when she did mature, still retained a lot of immature, annoying behaviors. The first couple seasons with Meadow and AJ, it's just like everything out of their mouth was, it was nasty. It was snotty. Now, not every
very realistic,
right? Not every teen is like that, but many teens are, and you almost never see that depicted.
And especially teens growing up in that environment.
Right. Also depicted in the show was lots of people flipped.
Yeah.
But without any real huge consequence,
Yeah.
Pussy flipped, Adrienne flipped, other captains flipped. And you never see that story arc kind of play out. Like one of the captains in the final season, you see him, the older guy with the glasses, I can't remember his name. They see him, talking willingly to the FBI.
Yeah.
We never find out what happens to him, I don't think. Also, the show is great because it makes fun of everybody. It makes fun of yuppies. It makes fun of psychiatrists. It makes fun of mob people. It makes fun of FBI people. It makes fun of police officers. And, it just makes fun of everybody.
Right. It also, by the way, remember it happened, it's not like they knew that 9/11 was going to happen.
Yeah.
But they ended up writing that's the consequences of 9/11 into the show.
Right.
And how like the FBI got redirected to working more on terrorism.
Right.
And they wrote storylines with that. And it was very well done in that sense.
Right. And they didn't do too much of it. Like you could have totally seen another writer, a very special episode of The Sopranos where, it happens and all of them wake up and...
Oh, I've got it. Tony realizes that, they want to make money just like the next guy, but it's not okay with this terrorism. And he recruits and all the mobsters start fighting terrorism.
Right.
Tony's 11.
Which another show would absolutely do. And everyone would love it because it touches all the buttons.
Because they're going to use all their badass mobster skills, but now against the terrorists.
Having said all that, it's not like this show didn't follow a lot of mainstream tropes like murder and sex, which I'll get into here.
And with the context that there were no shows like this show before it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Like and it's hard for me to even remember that.
Yeah.
Like before this TV show, I mean, now we just take for granted the Breaking Bads,
right,
the Mad Men, Game of Thrones.
Right.
We're just like, I mean,
it better be good. It better be epic. It better be like a movie.
Yeah. Some of my favorite art things are TV shows now.
Right.
Before The Sopranos came out, there was hardly anything that was like that. I mean, you could say there were some shows like Saint Elsewhere.
Well, ER had a couple of good early seasons that were touching. Nowhere near on the level, but still, good.
Yeah. Twin Peaks.
Oh, right.
You could say, but nothing like this. After this, the actors started, and the writers and the directors started realizing, wait, we can do TV.
Yeah.
Plus HBO probably paid good money for this as opposed to others. And the audience and the producers and everyone's like, hey, let's do this.
Yeah.
Okay, things I didn't like. Season 6, boring.
I love season 6.
Aside from the main story with Philly and Tony, love it. All that stuff with Phil and Johnny Sack and, essentially all the mob stuff.
You're just really against the dream sequences.
And how long of a drawn out thing it was. When you watch season 6 again, when you get there.
No, I've done it and I love it. No, I'm telling you.
Tony is in that hospital for half the season.
Who does that? No one does that.
I get it, but it's boring.
I loved it.
Boring.
You know what? Okay, you know why I liked it? Because it made me realize that this show was not about mobs. It wasn't about mafia. This was a show about the human condition and life and death. That's what the show was about.
Okay.
And that's why I liked it.
Boring. The other thing that really got to me upon second watching was every woman loved Tony.
Right.
It got old. Every woman he came across, every woman he wanted to have sex with, he had sex with.
Okay.
It got old and it was not believable, particularly as he aged, throughout the seasons. He got, noticeably less attractive.
I mean, I will say that the people they picked to be the ones that liked him were all super hot. But in real life, the self-selection would be that, yes, the women around him end up, quote unquote, liking him because he's the powerful, rich mobster.
Right. So some of it was like that, which is believable.
Yeah.
Particularly, it's like they might even be able to get money out of him.
Right.
But some of the women didn't really know about that or didn't really care about that, and he still got them. Then finally, in the last season, the real estate woman, who I think was implied to be a lesbian or bisexual, but anyway, the one who ended up with Chris, she ended up using heroin with Chris. Yeah. She rejects him. And I was like, finally. But then she changes her mind and she wants to be with him.
Yeah, yeah.
As you're watching this, just keep that in mind and watch just how repetitive. Plus, it just got. I was like, I would skip over those scenes too. It's like he's looking at this coworker at the waste management company, this secretary or this other worker. And she looks at him and she's just like, ooh. If it was Furio, I kind of get it. But Tony Soprano, the way they just treated it, it just felt for David Chase, who knows how to not be mainstream and knows how to deny the viewers, similar to George Martin, by the way, to make a better story than is typically told. I felt like that was pandering to the men in the audience of just Tony Soprano
certainly
gets to have sex, and they were always massively attractive women. It wasn't like he ever did it with some half attracted chick, you know what I mean? It was always just wow, she's an attractive woman and she wants him.
But is this really too? I mean, rich mafioso, like, I don't know. It's just
But just once. I just wanted to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
one time. Just
where
one
it didn't
time.
work, where it didn't work.
Like just once. Just give me one time where, or some indication, like maybe a girl.
Hey, with what's her name? The wife of Artie's wife.
Okay, good. That was one time. It was one time. But it would have been really weird if she, But anyway, give me a situation where, say, like there's this one scene where he meets this girl at the Bing, and she gives him a blowjob, and he drops her off at the house.
Yeah.
And the implication is she did it for free.
Right.
But what I would like to have happened is you're like, oh yeah, Tony, he always gets the girl. And then at the last minute, she's like, so $300. And he's like, oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
And like some indication of like, it's not because these women are genuinely attracted to him.
Sure.
It's not because these women are like, ooh, I want to crack off some of that apple. You know what I mean? It's like, it's because of these other reasons that they do it.
Although I definitely wanted to see some of because like it did make sense to me that someone like Gloria would be attracted to this extremely dangerous person.
That relationship I was fine with.
You're just saying like, what about the other cases?
It was constant. It was just constant, and it just got so old. I mean, his relationship with the woman
the Italian
who had one leg. No, the woman who had one leg.
Sure. She was.
I liked that one.
Yeah.
I liked that one because they actually played out a relationship, and she was different from the other women in that she was like, I don't want anything from you.
Yeah.
Like we had a good time.
Yeah.
That's it. Like moving on. I'm not like the other women. Like I'm sure of myself. I don't need you for anything.
Right.
Anyway, so I got along those lines, watching this show with my, adult eyes as opposed to my young adult eyes. The male gaze in this show is quite noticeable now. I get it. It's a mob show. They live in a male gaze kind of world.
Yeah.
But like where the camera goes, and the costume choices for a lot of the women, I was just like, okay, I get it. Like I don't think we have to take it that far.
99.
Which I get.
Yeah.
Which I get.
By the way, I will say though, look at Trump's wives. At least, maybe he was very good looking younger. I don't know.
But I have to believe that a shit ton of women have turned him down.
Yeah, probably.
Even if he does have power.
Although I don't know if you hear his recording. Yeah. Apparently they don't.
AJ's lines, particularly later in the series, when he was like, God is dead and all that kind of stuff, I never believed those lines. Either he didn't deliver them well, or it wasn't written well, or it wasn't directed well or edited well. But whenever AJ was like, God is dead, and like going through all those phases, I always got the sense of, oh, that's a young actor acting. Like when Gandolfini would say something, I was never taken out of it. I was like, that's Tony Soprano saying something. When AJ would say stuff, I always just felt like there's, I don't know what's wrong with that scene, but something terribly wrong. I just felt like it was, at least the writing was over the top. Anyway, some of the product placement was a little annoying, like the Coca-Cola stuff everywhere in the cars. Like I said, the therapy scene's terrible. Tell me if you notice this. Whenever Tony, because there's a lot of scenes where Tony would be eating. Yeah. Often pasta of some sort.
And ice cream.
And ice cream. He would always be playing with his food in a certain way. And
yes.
Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Did that bother you at all?
No. But I noticed it.
It always bothered me because at some point I learned that actors, they would tell you behind the scenes. And they'll tell you like, and you probably know this, but just for the listeners, when you're an actor and you're doing a scene and you have food in front of you that you're supposed to be eating in the scene, you're at a dinner scene. Well, you might do 15 takes.
Right.
If you actually eat
The whole time.
the whole time, you're going to have like 10 plates of food.
Right.
So the trick is one, you either put food in your mouth and spit it out, or you just never really put food in your mouth. And you do all the other things related to food eating, like pushing your food around on the table on your plate and, do stuff with your fork, but you never actually put food in your mouth because that saves you from having to eat like 10 pounds of food while you do 15 takes.
There's actually a joke about Brad Pitt because, he's got so many scenes where he's eating and he actually does eat. It's just like, how come he doesn't gain weight?
I saw an interview with him and he answered this question and he said that in real life, he's a grazer, he says. Like he doesn't eat meals. Anyway.
Yeah. That must explain it.
Yeah. But in The Sopranos, other actors would deal with that problem in different ways. Like they just wouldn't draw attention to their...
I see.
But I wondered if James...
Tony like stabs.
Well, he's always kind of, stabbing and moving, and it's like he's trying to fluff his food. It looks like even his ice cream.
Yeah.
He would do it with his ice cream.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
So I never caught on that was a technique. I just always thought that's a personality quirk.
Yeah, but it always just kind of... And if you really watch it, which I would obsessively watch, he would do that and he would never put anything in his mouth. So it's, you know what I mean? It's not like it's a part of his eating process. It's just, I think it's his way of trying to
not eat too much.
Like I said, dream sequences, terrible.
I love the dream sequences.
Berto, why do we...
But sorry. The show, dream sequences were part of the show. It was like a shtick of the show.
Yeah, but make them shorter and make them less obvious.
Why do we...
Because when I'm watching, especially when he's the salesman, there was no consequence to these dreams.
Well, I mean, there was in the sense of what, like the existential message that Chase was getting across, but not... Like Tony didn't learn the lesson or something like that. There was almost no lesson to be learned,
But like, there were some moments, where it was, I guess, interesting on a certain level.
Yeah.
He sees Tony, his cousin, and he's like, "Come inside. Yeah. There's a party, and it's brightly lit."
Yeah.
And Tony Soprano is like, wants to go in, but he's like, "Well, something about that I just don't want to do." Okay, that was interesting, but that was like 2 minutes of literally like a cumulative 45 minutes of dream sequence that were spread out over a few episodes. And, their whole sequence is he goes to a bar and he's a salesman. He's stuck in this hotel and he goes to a bar and he orders a drink and then he orders some food and he has a just random conversation with another patron. And, hey, I like your watch. And it's just like, why the fuck am I watching a boring dream? It's even a boring dream.
Okay, but this was him giving you what you wanted, which was, you're right, Kirk. He's not a psychopath. This is another version that he could have been. And it would have been boring, and you wouldn't have watched the show. So you wanted him to have the psychopathic tendencies.
Berto, why do we even like mob shows?
There's that element of danger and certainly the fact that these mobsters seem to get away with things that end up giving them cool things like cars and money and women and stuff like this, and that seems appealing, Also, they're anti-establishment, and usually, traditionally, they're portrayed in a much more favorable light than in The Sopranos, like in The Godfather, there's this sort of illusion of like, well, sure, some mobsters are horrible, but some mobsters are really great family, man, and they're just trying to live within, that immigrant lifestyle and blah. And so you get this sense of that's not so bad. I mean, they do what they got to do to survive, but they're badasses.
Yeah, by the way, I heard, and I don't know, but I heard from some people who study this that before The Godfather, mobsters were all kind of like Ralphie and...
In shows and movies and things?
No, before Godfather comes out, like real mobsters.
Oh.
So in real life, the mob was comprised mainly of people like Ralphie.
Like Al Capone's.
And people who... There's no glamour. Yeah. It's basically when you think of like the Bloods and the Crips.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of stuff. Yeah. just like low-level crimes, no rules, no, noble thief, just psychopathic awfulness, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's out for themselves. The Godfather comes out, and all those mob people start going, "Ooh, that's cool," and they started to adopt some of that system because it was romanticized.
I could see that.
But I don't know. Anyway, yeah, the main reason why we like mob shows, and I'm quite sure of this, and this is with a lot of entertainment, whether it's superheroes or whatever, is that we identify with certain characters like Tony Soprano because they have tremendous power.
Yeah. When
Tony Soprano is at the restaurant and he sees a guy across the restaurant with a baseball cap on,
right,
and it annoys him. Well, for the rest of us, we can't do anything. And if we do, we might get into a fight,
right,
and we might lose. For Tony Soprano, he can walk up to that guy in the nice restaurant who's wearing the baseball cap and say, "Take off your hat."
Right.
Not only is he practiced in intimidation, but he can follow it up.
Yeah.
And even if he gets caught following it up, he'll go scot-free because he's paid off cops. That's a power that all of us would love to have, but none of us do. And it's thrilling to see that enacted on the screen. That's why we like, that you got to have sex with whoever you want, and you got to, Trivia. How many nominations, Emmy nominations, do you think it got in 6 years?
6 years, Emmy nominations, 20.
111.
Jesus Christ.
How many did it win?
30.
21. Upon second watching, and I don't know if you noticed this in recent watchings, I noticed a lot of super famous actors doing
cameos.
Not cameos, very small parts.
Sure.
A cameo is when, a famous person who's already famous shows up in a show.
Oh, you mean these were before they were famous?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yes.
Like, do you remember who?
Let's see. Not specifically, but I remember that, because it was 20 years ago, so, obviously, many of them went on to do stuff.
So, no, we're talking, total bit parts. Like Will Arnett, who is, Arrested Development as Job. He plays the FBI woman who infiltrates Adrienne. Mm-hmm. He is her husband.
Oh, okay.
And he's in 3 seconds. Lady Gaga.
I knew that she was in it at some point.
She is in it for 2 or 3 seconds, and she's one of AJ's friends when they vandalize the pool.
Okay.
Paul Dano is Paul Dano is one of AJ's best friends.
But who is he?
He was in There Will Be Blood.
Oh, that guy. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Was a black street kid that bullies young Tony in a flashback, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Again, 2 seconds. Lin-Manuel Miranda.
What?
Yeah.
Was he in it?
He's a bellhop.
Holy shit.
Tony Hale, Buster in Veep. He's an FBI agent, I believe. Cara Buono, who is not a huge name, but she's Chris's wife, if you remember. Yeah. The one who actually marries Chris. She's the mom in Stranger Things. Okay. The mom who likes Billy. Uh-huh. And she was also in Mad Men. Christy Milioti she plays the mother in How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, okay.
And she's also in Black Mirror in the Star Trek episode. And many others. So it was so weird. I'd be like, holy crap, that's Michael B. Jordan.
It makes
holy crap,
sense,
that's Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It makes sense,
saying that
it's Lin-Manuel Miranda. It makes sense because it's 6 seasons of the top show.
Miranda, that's how Barrick and Miranda.
6 seasons of the top show of all time at the time, right? Where they need a lot of extras and people and stuff like that. And if you put that on your resume, it probably gets you other jobs after that.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. So the guy who plays Paulie, he only agreed to sign on for the show if it was guaranteed that his character would not become a rat.
Nice. Because he was a mobster in real life.
Not a mobster, but a criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was convicted.
Yeah.
Lorraine Bracco was originally asked to play Carmilla.
I knew that. Yeah.
What an awful show it would have been if she, because okay, so as I started watching it again, and I was, episode 2, I was like, for my taste, Lorraine Bracco is a terrible actress in this show. I can't stand the way she talks. I mean, maybe it's because I can't stand her character and what she's doing. But so I Google it. I'm like, I just Google like Lorraine Bracco terrible in Sopranos. And there's all this debate on Reddit about, is Lorraine Bracco terrible or not? Some people think, just like me, that they can't stand the way she talks. Her language is very deliberate on the show. Yeah. It's so weird. And I just don't think it's delivered very well. In other, acting jobs she's done, she's great. Goodfellas, she's amazing in Goodfellas. Yeah. Do you like her as an actress?
I liked her character.
Do you like the way she acts in this show?
Well, look, I didn't think she was particularly phenomenal in Goodfellas, but I thought she was not the best actress in this show, but I liked her okay.
Oh, I can't even look at her.
But remember, like, the therapy sessions didn't bother me anywhere near as much as they bothered you.
But even when she was talking with anybody, it was bothersome. Yeah. But can you got to admit, if Edie Falco was not Carmilla,
no, totally. Like, Edie Falco was easily 30% of the formula.
Yeah. Ray Liotta, Goodfellas, was supposed to be Tony Soprano. He was the top choice.
Really?
But he turned it down.
Whoa, that would have been a very different show.
How dumb is that they would take the same couple from Goodfellas,
yeah, right.
Ray Liotta and Lorraine Bracco, and just
would have been bad.
Like cheesy, like trying to capitalize on Goodfellas. Plus, like, again, I just can't imagine that.
It's just a very different show.
Yeah, I could see Ray Liotta pulling it off because,
he's a good actor. It's just a very different show.
The woman who played Adrienne.
Oh, sorry. Part of it is because Ray Liotta looks like an actor.
Yeah.
Tony looks like some guy from Jersey.
Right. And I hadn't seen him in anything before that. And by the way, he is in Killing Them Softly.
I know, you told me, yeah.
Which is a great movie. Drea De Matteo, who plays Adrienne.
Man, I had the biggest crush on her.
Really?
Yeah. From the moment she appeared on the screen, I was like, oh, who's that?
She spent 4 hours in hair and makeup before shooting.
I don't doubt it.
Each episode. It took her 2 hours to prepare her hair.
Yeah.
The large mugshot in the Bing's office of a 23-year-old Frank Sinatra. In 1938, Sinatra was arrested and charged for what, do you think?
I used to know this. I'm going to go with drunk driving.
Well, according to IMDb, it's seduction of a married woman.
Oh, what? That was illegal. Holy shit.
Tony's boat is called the Stugatz. Do you know what that means?
Stugatz. Isn't it a cigar thing?
According to IMDb, it means this dick.
Oh.
All right. Well, these two dicks are going to sign off and say goodbye and end this episode. So everyone, please take care of yourself. Take care of other people because
you deserve it.